Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got Jamison, Maxwell, and Ty Lee. And folks, if you've been listening to this podcast this summer and you're like, look, they've been talking about every conference. They've been talking about the video game. They've been yapping about commentators. When are they going to talk about some dadgum Oklahoma Sooners football? Folks, this is your time. It is darn near football time in Oklahoma. We are very close, and we have reached the point where we're breaking down the roster. So I, for one, am thrilled. I know y'all are thrilled. This is going to be, as always, a very fun podcast. This is, what year? How long have we been doing this overall?
I'm be honest, Bobby. I don't remember. I think the first year, I think it'll be 2018 is the math.
So
I'm not sure.
This is what, year 6, year 7 of the Schooner Pod, something like that. Like this is we've been doing this a while, and I gotta say, I cannot think of a season. And I've been this excited for, just with the unknowns of both OU and college football as a whole. Like this is going to be really fun. So I'm excited to dive into this, boys.
Yeah, I'm honestly really surprised. Ty and I are kind of laughing and saying, this is the most you've been excited for a season. I understand the new SEC is really, really fun, but there's a lot you're going up against with the first year of Kyler and then the return of Baker. And that's a lot to say about this season.
More in a while. More excited than the 2021, more excited than probably that 21 run with Radler. It's just different. Excitement and optimism are a little different on this one. I'm not saying this is going to be the team that makes the run, but with all the different stuff going on, it's hard to not be like, this is going to be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, if Bobby's a noted, not to the point that it's a problem, hopefully, but Bobby's a noted gambler, and I think there is a bit of gamblers sort of adrenaline rush to this. Like it could be anything. This OU football team could be anything. We'll get into it. We got basically, maybe entirely, depending on who plays, who doesn't play, an entirely new line, essentially a brand new quarterback, if we just kind of forget what happened in that whole bowl game fiasco, and all sorts of other, first time in since the existence of the Schooner Pod that we don't have Drake Stoops. So there's a whole bunch of unknowns coming up on this team. And it really could be we could be the next Colorado. We could be playing for clicks and 4 wins, or we could be surprisingly good. I don't know. We'll get into, everyone will start to lose their minds about ceilings and floors and all that other chatter that people get. But I think there's maybe a bit of a gambler's excitement to this, that knowing that it could be everything and it could be nothing.
Yeah. In a way, if it is the floor of nothing is obviously really low, but also that's I think a rock bottom OU season for this year would be 7-6, but also
please don't say that, because that's so unbelievably clippable. And that's such a terrible jinx.
Look, man, if it gets worse, then I'll eat a jar of Fruity Pebble pickles if we go.
There's a new cereal pickle this year on the State Fair of Texas. If you guys looked at the finalists that released last week, Bobby, I think it's a mixture of every single one of the sugary cereals, and then it is a cotton candy pickle.
We're 4.5 minutes in and it's off the rails. Esoteric pickle chat.
So we'll have plenty of time to continue to just chat about random stuff throughout the season. But we should get into the roster. Jamison, I feel like when we're talking, this is the offensive preview. So next Sunday we'll be talking about the defense. Just so you know, somehow, in case you're not haven't read the title, we're breaking down the offense, which I feel like is a more interesting discussion. Which usually in the past, like when we started this podcast, Mike Stoops was still in charge, of the defense. So this is a totally different situation where the defense is a little bit more reliable. Offense is a massive question mark. And I feel like the top of the list of the question marks has to be, because it's Oklahoma, the quarterback play and Jackson Arnold. A lot of people wanted to see this guy last year. And here he is. Dylan Gabriel gone. We got a new guy in charge. What are you thinking about Arnold entering the fray as QB1 for the first time properly?
I'm gonna be honest, Bobby. I might be in the same kind of ballpark with Ty on this one. I am going to be optimistic about Jackson Arnold, but he has not given me anything to prove that he's anything different than he was in the Arizona game. So I still am not going to pump sunshine. Yes, he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in high school. He showed some things in practice. He's coming into his own. But all throughout this offseason, and this is a really hard task that he goes against, whenever you read practice reports from like the donor sites, you hear way more about the defense winning. And I understand the defense will be more advantaged whenever you play the same team over and over, and they will be able to like learn the offense. But still, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic, but I am not going to pump sunshine right now in this Oklahoma Sooners offensive preview about Jackson Arnold until he goes out there. And if I need to see something come conference play. That Tennessee game, if he can prove something to me there, then I'll start to buy in.
Yeah, I mean, it's that non-con is light. I feel like there are a couple tricky opponents. I feel like maybe Tulane, their new head coach, I felt like that's a really good hire. He did a lot of great work at Troy. Obviously, Willie Fritz did a lot of great work at Tulane. He's now with Houston. Obviously, that cupboard's pretty bare roster wise. You do still have Donovan Smith, but that doesn't really do. But that doesn't do much. It doesn't. That neither of those defenses really do much to give me fear. That Tennessee defense, that is going to be a challenge to say the least. So we, as OU fans, have to be chill, pump the brakes. If he's out there and eviscerates those first three opponents, I think, because I think, if he doesn't, I think it's kind of fair to be a little nervous.
I'm unbelievably optimistic. You guys are sitting here.
You
guys are sitting here, and you're saying, "Oh no, Simba can't be king because Mufasa died. Simba's traumatized because Mufasa died." That's how you feel. That's how you sound talking about this bowl game. The hero cannot be the hero without adversity. Otherwise, it's just a nepotism story, right? Oh, Mufasa lives happily ever after, just hands it over to Simba. There's no adversity there. No one likes Simba in that situation. Mufasa has to die. There has to be the adversity. And really, to tone the bit back a bit, this is the classic story that you hear about any sort of person going to greatness. Tom Brady didn't show up to the Pats and just get, the road paved for him. People talk about going to these elite sort of academic programs and stuff. Their first test, they get smoked. They're like, what is this? And then they, grind through it and they become better. That's how you improve. I think if Jackson Arnold is the guy that we all know that he can be, that bowl loss will be so much better in the long run than it would have been for him to show up and just show out and be like, okay, yeah, I'm set. I don't have to worry about developing. If that can serve as a wake-up call in what was, we're not going to get into whether or not that season was a success or not, because we'll go off the rails there.
Ooh, look at Bobby.
I am unbelievably optimistic for him. And I think that if he is the guy that we all know that he can be for this team, that will be nothing but helpful. That will be his chip on his shoulder in an expendable game that we can carry into this and say, hey, every day in practice, this is never going to happen again. We're never going to have this performance happen again. Some of that stuff wasn't on him. We'll get into that. We get into the receivers. There's a receiver that shouldn't be on this team at all, but some people think he's great. We'll talk about that later. But I'm unbelievably
all we got now.
Unbelievable. We need a receiver that can throw interceptions. It's absurd. But I'm unbelievably optimistic for Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, and I completely understand it, and it's completely fair. This guy is still a first-time, starting quarterback. This is his first season going in. He's going to have growing pains. He's going to have bad games. There are going to be some games this year where inevitably he will be the reason we lose. It's just plain and simple. And whenever you play the kind of competition you have in the SEC, it's going to be there's going to be tough games and there's going to be some games where he's going to be good. So don't expect perfection from Jackson Arnold this season, Sooner fans, because I feel like we're very conditioned to that. And obviously the way our fans treated Spencer Rattler, which some of it was a lot of it was deserved, but you can see how early the fans turned on Spencer Rattler shows how quickly a fan base can sour on a quarterback.
We also knew what we had. We had a literal Heisman winner sitting behind.
We did not know that. There were some people that were overtly put it in all-in poker chips and got lucky. But
it was. We didn't know it was we didn't know Caleb would be that. We knew.
Yeah, we knew he was good, and then he ran a bunch during the spring game where they can't even tackle him, and so everyone started to buy in there.
Yeah, and he had a couple of those weird little draw plays, but it wasn't so clear cut. You know what I mean? And I mean, ask some Saints fans. You can see a little bit of that Spencer Rattler that we were seeing right now. Yeah. He's not total garbage. And
talking about the same fan.
We don't need to rehash.
Jameis Winston was the end all be all.
Anyway,
all I'm saying is the movie sucked. Admittedly, the new movie sucked, but you don't get Napoleon without some kangaroo courts. So
I'm just saying I feel like Arnold, though, he obviously has he has the materials to be good. He feels like he is a quarterback that can be that Heisman caliber. And I think we
this
can
season?
See it. No, not this year.
Okay.
He's too raw.
We'll get him talked into it by the end of the pod, Jamison.
No, after the Temple game or Tulane game, I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, he's gonna do it, boys. I'm gonna ignore my own advice.
I'm all in.
Yeah, I'm all in. Putting the chips in. No, I think he is he's ready for this moment. I feel like having Seth Luttrell in, or in and around the program early before he took over the OC job, that's going to be really helpful. I don't know. I'm optimistic, but cautious,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a term for that.
Yeah.
I'll cook one up.
Of course. So going into the quarterback room behind Jackson Arnold, it really comes down to, are you going to believe the hype, or are you going to believe the guy who has a resume, he's played a bunch of games as a college football quarterback? Are you going to say Casey Thompson is our backup quarterback or Michael Hawkins? I'm going to frame it like this. Ty, if you had Jackson Arnold to go down in the second half of the Tennessee game, we are up by 3. Who do you send in, Casey Thompson or Michael Hawkins?
I'm not going to be happy about it, but I think without hesitation, I'm sending in Casey Thompson.
Exactly.
Right? Because you have the experience. Just the wealth of experience there is, you can't pass that up.
So he is the backup quarterback, because I don't see any scenario in a meaningful game where if Jackson Arnold were to go down, we would send in Hawkins before putting in Casey. It just does not make any sense for people that are playing Casey is not doing as much in practice because he's coming back from an injury. And then Michael Hawkins is an elite, mobile quarterback, and they do great whenever they can't be touched. So yeah, he's going to go out and do some really good stuff in practice, but I just don't see any way, shape, or form this coaching staff is going to put Michael Hawkins in if Jackson goes down. So I think it's a clear-cut 2-3 situation.
No, I'm with you. I think it's going to be Casey Thompson, especially in an emergency situation. Like it or not, he has a lot of experience. He can go in and keep things calm and operate the offense in case of emergency. I don't know if this is a situation where you're snap your fingers, Thanos snap, our guy Jackson Arnold out of existence, and we have to decide between the two. I think you probably look at Hawkins to be your main guy going forward, even though he is young. But in terms of an emergency valve, I think you go Casey Thompson.
I think I disagree with that, though, Bobby, because I understand you're thinking upside here, but this team doesn't need a superstar quarterback to be a very successful football team. We are going to lean a lot on our defense this year. So even though Hawkins has a higher ceiling and a lower floor, I don't think we would need to even take that risk. So yes, if there's a scenario where Casey Thompson goes out there and he just duds for a game or a full half, and they're already wanting to turn, to another option in Hawkins. I get it, but I would disagree to where, like, if we're getting just, average quarterback play out of Thompson, I think you stick with him.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know. It's the backup discussion is really tricky when you come to that. But I do agree that I think he's in reality the guy you go with, because again it gets into a whole other conversation about development versus not, that sort of thing. But that's not hopefully a conversation we have to have. But
I will say this could serve as a good segue, not to jump the gun or hijack the direction, but I feel like the more I think about this decision, the more it kind of comes down to what does the line pan out to be? Because if we're talking about we have a line that just can't do anything to protect the quarterback, maybe I start to think about the guy who's a little bit more mobile and is much higher risk. I don't necessarily know higher reward, but he's a much higher risk guy for sure. Just style of play differences. And if you're talking about Casey Thompson back there, and we can't really protect him, and we can't really get that sort of safety net out of him and get that experience and get that, hey, we can water it down a little bit, because the second you have to put a guy in that's not your starter and it's not your choice, the playbook changes, right? So I think there are some scenarios I could very easily see, into the season where maybe the way the line is playing and the way that because I think, this could be a great segue into receivers too. I think we have a very, very solid receiver room, the way that a lot of guys are developing. But I could definitely see some scenarios where maybe Casey Thompson isn't the right choice or the highest, likelihood of success choice there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's transition to offensive line then, Ty, because this is the biggest question mark of a position on this whole football team. And I want to applaud all of the, I don't even know what you call them, like the sources that have, sources to Sooner Scoop and Rivals and TFB and all of the, the programs that the same people I'm sure talk to these guys and give them their insider reports and practice reports and whatnot. They've been doing a really good job of framing the offensive line as not a catastrophe and that we should stop panicking about. And I feel like the fans of Oklahoma have stopped panicking. But in reality, we don't know, I think 3, or you can argue 4, I'd say 3 of the positions on our offensive line. So let's kind of walk through them together. At left tackle, it's kind of a mixed match hodgepodge group because, left tackle, you think Jacob Sexton should be the guy. He should be our best offensive lineman, our second best offensive lineman on this team. But the thing is, if we don't think we can get Heath Ozada at left guard, we might need to push him into left guard and Tarquin at left tackle. It seems like the majority of the reports are saying that Tarquin is playing better at his job at left tackle than Ozada is playing at left guard. And even though Ozada is a guy to the future that should be probably starting next year, kind of like how we talked about Jacob Sexton last year, we might need to move forward with a we got to win now attitude. And if Tarquin's truly playing better as a left tackle and Sexton does have the skill and versatility to move in guard, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see Tarquin at left tackle and left guard Jacob Sexton.
Yeah, no, and I think Tarquin, that's a guy you obviously go out in the portal, you get him. And obviously probably not a cheap player to say the least. So if you can win now with that guy, you do it. That's just plain and simple what it comes down to. So to me, I just feel like, especially with this kind of, even though it's not a disaster, at least that what we're getting out of the reports and everything, you don't want to mess around with this, especially not year one in the SEC with the D-line play we have. So I'm with you. I think Tarquin, if it's a win now move, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other guy at left guard that you got to consider would be Jarian Hatchett. And this is a guy, honestly, all of these combinations of Jacob Sexton at left tackle, and then Hatchett at guard, or Heath Ozada at left guard, or Tarquin at left tackle and Jacob Sexton at left guard. I feel like it's probably 40% for for Tarquin at left tackle scenario, and then the rest splitting at 30-30. It doesn't. I don't think we're really getting much of a beat 'em boss show here. So I'm going to be very curious to see who trots out there in that Temple game. And I guarantee you, after a couple of drives, you're going to immediately see someone different. It's going to be rotating, and they're going to try to feel this out before SEC play of who's going to be their best five. Beatonbow is very well known towards he is going to find his best five, and it doesn't matter who they are and what position they play, he's going to get them on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And Tarquin, Jamison, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but has played a bunch of different positions. Played most of his time in Florida. Looks like was right guard. Does that sound correct? So he right tackle. But he's played all over. So it's definitely interesting, and it'll be interesting to see. Coach Beatonbow was the main thing that jumped out to me on the line. We talked about again how it plays is going to drive some of maybe what we see in quarterback play and everything else. And I think, like you said, Bobby, I think it is kind of a win now situation, or we have to play the line as a win now situation just because of the newness of our quarterback and what we've seen from him so far. But what I was going to say about Coach Beatonbaugh is it'll be interesting to see what he does with sort of completely new but all very experienced guys on his line, because he's sort of been easing into the waters with this. We've seen in the past, what he could do years and years ago, because he's been on OU staff for a long time with guys that he sort of recruited, raised, and developed together as a unit. It's really interesting to see, because he is one of the great line coaches in college football right now, what he's going to cook up with this sort of mix and match grab bag of players that he's gotten out of the portal here, just because the way that things have shaken up. So that'll be very, very interesting to see, just as a fan of the game and as a fan of line play, what one of the greats can do with that.
Yeah. So going to center, I think that a lot of people have penciled in Branson Hickman, the SMU transfer at center. Technically sound, has been there and done that, but it seems like that they're still pushing the narrative within camp right now that Josh Bates versus Branson Hickman is an open competition. And Josh Bates is kind of connecting the dots, and he's kind of been within this system for a couple years now. So he's starting to understand things. But the one thing, whenever I hear that, I'm like, great. I know that they really like Bates and who he is. He's a hard worker. But this guy was known to have snapping issues, and we saw it firsthand too. And that's just something that I do not want to take a risk. If, Branson Hickman has been snapping the ball over and over for multiple years now in college, I do not want to take the chance of moving forward with a guy that, even if he has refined that, it's like a running back who fumbles, like James Cook, whenever he was coming out of college, and he's done really well this season, but he was known as like his down thing was he's a fumbler. In the first play he goes out there in NFL, he fumbles. I just worry about guys with reputations like that, to where I don't want to take the chance. And I think it's best that we move forward with Branson Hickman. But if, Bates comes out there, there's a chance that he could have won this battle. And Beatonbow doesn't care if you came in and Branson Hickman and we just gave you an NIL package. He doesn't care. If he thinks that Bates is going to be a better player for this team, he'll put you out there.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I feel like that's something that is a huge plus with Beatonbow, is he's not going to baby you. We know that quite well with a former OU lineman out in Missouri now. He's going to tell you the truth, and he's probably damn right, like we're hearing out of reports from there. And to me, I will say I like Hickman. Obviously SMU was very good last year. He's on the, I believe, Remington watch list, which is pretty neat. You never know the preseason watch list. They kind of slap everyone on there, but still pretty neat.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But right now I'm trending Hickman as well. Just because, I don't know. Like you said, guys like that who snap over your head, they give me the yips, because they do it. You do it frequently, because everyone makes mistakes. But when it's a constant thing, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's finish off by talking about the right side of this line. I think that, in all honesty, some people could be pretty confident and say who the right guard and the right tackle is. Fabechi Wiwu, transfer from North Texas, seems to be the most confident that any of all the message boards and all of OU commenters and people talking about football are confident saying that Wiwu. And this guy has been really playing like our best off.
Jamison, you're sounding like you're underwater there for a bit, bud.
I am under the water.
Okay, now you're back.
No, you were not.
Oh, okay. I was actually touching my mic's input, so I apologize to everyone.
Why were you doing that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Dealing with your mic, boy.
Why'd you do that?
I need something else to fiddle with, I guess. I'll grab something. I've grabbed this, like the former mic stand. I'll fiddle with it down here instead of the plug-in. But we will.
Sorry, I unplugged my mic halfway through.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sorry. But we will. Right guard seems to be kind of set in stone, and I feel happy about that. And then if it's going to be Hatchet backing him up or Eugene Brooks backing him up, if Hatchet ends up being the starter at left guard, I think that Weewoo's got that right guard put in place.
And that makes sense to me too, because he's familiar with Latrell, given that he's a North Texas, transfer. So that would check out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an animal. Big guy, perfect body type for a guard. You're going to see him whenever he comes out on the field. It's going to make a lot of sense why he's slated in right guard. Right tackle, I think we've been hearing so many good things about Jake Taylor for years, but we don't know if he's a guard or a tackle. I think that there's a lot of questions through the spring and then into the summer and now coming up to the fall of Spencer Brown. I think we almost slotted in Spencer Brown without even thinking about it as the guy who's going to be the right tackle. It's like, oh, he has so many starts under his belt, but he's been playing at Michigan State. Michigan State's been miserable for the years that he was playing. So, I know, right? So, even though he is starting there, I don't think we need to use that as much as an accolade here, as Jake Taylor has been in Beat 'em Bo's system, and Beat 'em Bo's system takes a long time to learn. So if you're talking about experience when it comes down to Jake Taylor has played real snaps on the field and in practice for multiple years now, I don't think that, Spencer Brown playing at Michigan State is that big of an advantage coming into this new system. So I think Jake Taylor, right tackle, I think slot it, and it's going to happen on week 1.
Yeah, that'd be pretty big time, to say the least.
Yeah. Other guys that we didn't really talk about, just for honorable mentions, seems like everyone's freaking out about Logan Howland, how much weight he put on. Good for him. He could be a tackle of the future, but still a redshirt freshman. Everyone loves Eddie Pierre-Louis whenever they watch his track clips, but, he's still got a lot to learn. And then don't count out, if we're having a trouble at the center, Troy Everett just coming right back from his injury and just slotting in and starting. And then you can't count that out. But I say we move into running back room, then go running back, tight end, wide receiver to end this. What do y'all think?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good next spot. The running back room to me, last year, that was one of the biggest disappointments because I felt like we thought it was going to be one of the biggest strengths, given how good Sawchuk was in the bowl game. Same with Javonte Barnes. And this is kind of why you can't, be too big on bowl games because you never know how it translates from season to season because both of those guys were not very good. That being said, I felt like Gavin Sawchuk came on really, really strong at the end of last year. Had a couple really big games, especially against Oklahoma State. And maybe my bias from the football game is coming in a little bit because
it's a strong bias. It's a strong bias. I have to detach everything I know about playing college football 25 and then talking about this season because Gavin Sawchuk is damn good.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, there are a couple players who just pop up out of nowhere, and I hear them as freshmen. I'm like, hey, in 3 years from now, you're gonna be great. But no, Sawchuk in the game is silly. If he's anything like that, we're in really good shape, to say the least. But that being said, I feel like it's a pretty deep running back room, Jamison. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Gavin Sawchuk definitely solidified at 1. It seems like the reports coming out of camp that Javonte Barnes has made his way to 2, and then there's a cutoff right there. They're the 1 and the 2, but I think that they're still tier 1 Sawchuk, tier 2 Javonte Barnes. Javonte Barnes, they're hopeful, and they don't want to say this verbiage of he can be what they thought he was going to be whenever he was a freshman, but in reality, it seems like a lot of what he had with injury troubles, he won't be what he used to be, but whatever he is right now is good. And it's explosive, and he's playing at good pace in camp right now to the point where it's we can just throw that out the window and just see what he is in these first couple of weeks because our running backs 4 or 5 deep will get a lot of run. And we'll be able to kind of see flashes to see, is Barnes going to be that guy I could feel pretty good about whenever Sawchuk comes out after first 2 downs and we need a 3rd and 2 and Javonte Barnes can stuff it up the middle.
Yeah, and I think that versatility is something that I think makes Barnes, if he's healthy, just a really good fit there. Ty, how weird is it entering a podcast and not having Marcus Major as your guy to watch for?
It's a curse lifted. It's you sometimes you paint yourself into a corner. It's like if we made a rule in the weekend spread that you can't pick Texas State, Boko, it'd be a curse lifted for Jamison.
A bad rule. But, they got a good team this season.
Yeah. No, but on the running backs, I didn't jinx it, right? It wasn't my fault. We've established that. But I am actually very, very excited about a guy you guys haven't mentioned yet. That's freshman Taylor Tatum. If you guys go read some of the articles about him, the things that people are saying about him are very, very, very exciting to hear from a freshman. Like you got Jerry Schmidt, our strength and conditioning coach, notorious tough guy, talking about how he loves his mental toughness. Javonte Barnes talking about his mental toughness and how he just wants to work, wants to learn everything. Jackson Arnold talking about how he's maybe the best running back on our team right now, at least in spring practice, when it comes to adding layers to the passing game. You got, Coach Venables himself said he wouldn't put any limits on what he thinks that Tatum's going to be able to contribute based on in this fall. Again, hitting on his mental capacity to learn, his eagerness to be competitive, his mental toughness, fearlessness, handles tough coaching well already. Hearing that from a guy who didn't come in early, came in the summer on a normal timeline and is already impressing everyone from, again, notoriously tough strength and conditioning coach Jerry Schmidt, all the way to the head coach, to the quarterback, and the other very, very senior running backs. That's very, very exciting to me. I'm not saying he's going to be our RB1 this year. Running back obviously is a tough position in college for a freshman to come in and play, but I have not heard personally, and we'll get into what you guys think here in a second, but I haven't heard comments like that about an OU running back in the history of the Schooner Pod. I haven't heard people come in and say things like that are very, very exciting to me, right? Because if you have a guy who has the natural talent and physically is naturally there where you'd want from a freshman and is eager to come in and learn, they talk about how he's the first guy in the running back room and practice every day. He's always taking notes, always asking questions, always engaged. What that can develop into is super, super exciting for me. So he's going to be my guy that I'm watching this year, even if he is probably 3 in the depth chart, knock on wood that we don't have any injuries. But I think some significant playing time, and I think he's a guy where we will see, some touchdowns in his first few touches with some unique plays, especially if he's going to be layered into the passing game.
I don't know if he's number 3, though. That's the thing. This guy was a late enrollee, so it's going to be hard to take up Caleb Hicks' spot at 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, Hicks is also just a very incredibly promising prospect, to say the least. And I think that's not even a knock on Tatum, who I am thrilled about. And
Tatum is much better.
Yeah, like long term, and who knows how quick he could be an instant impact type of guy. But like, he's a guy who I'm thrilled about to watch in these first 3 games. Like, I feel like we're going to see a lot of burn from him, and that's a guy who he might be number 1 on my list of guys I'm excited about in the first 3 non-conferences.
Yeah, because we didn't get to see him in the spring game, so it's something that Sooner fans should be ecstatic about. When was the last time we had a running back this hyped coming into a class? Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon came on campus like he was the dude.
Let's talk more about Joe Mixon's freshman year preseason.
Yeah, but I think Hicks gets the spot over Tatum right now. And then, in all honesty, in the first game, if Sam Franklin comes out over Tatum, I'm not the most surprised either. I would be a little surprised, but still, coming in late as a true freshman is a steep hill, and he's doing all the things, like you said, Ty, to get up that hill, to overcome that barrier. But man, it's going to be a little bit in we need some spark in this running back room, because I'm not the most optimistic in it, because it's like last season we were talking about how miserable this room was, and really we just
Now we have the
kept
same guys.
and get Javonte Barnes. So yeah, like it is kind of the same room here, guys.
What was
We're just
the
gonna hope for improvement?
what was the line from last pod about Colorado? The vibe is worse and the team is worse. But certainly they will be better this time.
No,
Certainly
I don't
know. Improve.
I don't think it is though. I mean, I'm not. They're not a slam dunk.
I don't think the team is
like
worse. But
No.
is.
No, it's you gotta say like, hey, Gavin Sawchuk was not healthy to begin the season last year, and we thought he was going to be RB1 coming into the first game last year, and then all of a sudden he was kind of just stuck. And we're like, what's going on here? It was true that I think he was dealing with an ankle or some lower extremity injury. He was not 100%. And then throughout the season, he became 100% and became the guy that we thought that he could be. So that's where the optimism of this Oklahoma running back room is. But in all honesty, I still think it's a position where I'm not 100% confident, like a lot of the defensive positions, to where, and actually, in all honesty, guys, as I say this, I don't think I'm confident 100% in any of these positions on the offensive side of the ball. And I probably am confident about three or four of the position groups on the defensive side, which is crazy to say out loud.
What a bold take.
Take
all these preseason takes with a grain of salt.
I have doubts about every single position group on the offense. I don't have doubts for the linebacker group. I don't have doubts about the cornerback group. I don't have doubts about the safeties. And then
probably should a little bit.
Yeah, I guess a little
Not the
bit.
linebackers, but I feel like we talk about the secondary. Again, we'll save this for another pod, but we're always talking about the secondary.
But what I'm trying to get at is I have a little bit of question in my brain whenever I talk about, this running back room, the wide receiver room, the tight ends, the offensive line, the quarterback. But I mean, that's okay. It doesn't mean that they can be perfect. And we know that they're young and they've got a lot to prove still. So, if you don't give anyone their room to improve, what are you doing? Like you just got to watch and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I will say before.
Oh, Ty, you got it.
No, what were you going to say, Bobby?
I was going to say, I would say, if I had a doubt scale, this is probably one of the ones I'm least. I kind of doubt it. I'm not. I wouldn't even call it like doubt. It's more just unsure because we've been burnt before. Like we've touched the stove. We know it might not. We know it might not be hot, but it might be hot, and I don't know if I want to touch it again.
Stove.
I know. I'm cautious around it.
Hot stove.
Hot stove. But I will say, I don't know. Overall, it's if I had to rank my concerns on offense, this is probably the second least concerned group. The group I'm second least concerned about.
I agree completely. Let's transition from one.
Ty had a point.
I have one last. We have to shout it out. Another freshman in the running back room, Xavier Robinson. If you go and read his recruitment story, really, really cool. A guy who was pretty heavily recruited by other teams. Notre Dame was up there. Some other bigger names. Was never going to go anywhere else. An in-state guy, and was just could not be more excited to be playing for the University of Oklahoma. And in this era of mercenaries and transfer portal and NIL and everything else, super, super refreshing to hear OU landing a massive in-state guy that had offers to go other places, had money to go other places, went into a very deep room, even in his freshman class. And you hear his comments right now talking about it, could not be more excited to be playing for the University of Oklahoma. So got to give that shout out there. Just haven't seen the same practice reports from him as I have from Tatum, but super, super excited. Again, both are freshmen. So who knows a couple of years down the line where they're going to end up. Yeah.
He's a big man. Who knows what position he's going to be playing in a couple of years.
Might be right guard.
But yeah, all right, cool. Let's move into Ty's favorite group, and we'll give him a talking head segment of the tight ends.
The quarterbacks.
Let me tell you something, Ty. I've been a hater of the tight ends the past couple years.
Yes,
I guess I guess, maybe a little bit 2 years ago. Definitely last year.
2 years ago, they deserved it.
Yeah, well, last year they deserved it too. But there's a lot more optimism right now about this tight end room from what we're hearing about Bauer Sharp coming in as a former quarterback, and he's got all this athleticism. He's going to be great. Jake Roberts is a monster in college football 25. He must be a monster in real life. I don't know. But in reality, there's so much room for improvement from what the production was last year that you've got to have high hopes. But the same side is, did we see anything from this tight end room in the spring game? No. Is Luttrell's offense going to not highlight as much the tight end room? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like we've got to see a lot whenever it comes in these first couple games.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Go ahead, Ty. You got it.
Oh, sorry. We're still in preseason form a little bit here.
A little bit.
I will be honest. Seth Luttrell might not actually know what a tight end is or is supposed to do.
That's like what sources. He does.
So, to be fair, they can't do anything if they don't get the ball. So, it's like, where's our full? Like, he not playing any fullbacks this year either. Like, what's going on?
He's coached the tight end position. It's 6 different positions during his tenure as a coach.
Yeah, he's a tight end guy, which I know it's not. It's not like this. This group is interesting to say the least, because I feel like we hear a lot about Bauer Sharp. We hear a lot about Jake Roberts, or maybe not as much about Jake Roberts, but he's there in college football 25, and he's kind of good. But yeah, this is a unit that isn't remarkable on the surface. Does not seem very remarkable. Does not seem hopefully not as bad as last year, like Jamison was mentioning, but I don't know. And I will say this is a unit that, to me, I have circled and, has. We got to ask, if this is a bad year, do we start? I don't want to say fire Joe John Finley, but and I'm not
he just
saying,
got a promotion, so to
but maybe stop promoting him, like. I'm not saying sack him, but do we start thinking?
Do we stop promoting him?
Maybe we've invested too much in Joe John Finley. I put all of our Fleck coin into Finley. Maybe
no more Fleck coin. We want the Fleck bank to be dry.
2 human first names and then a dog first name is his entire name.
By the way, Marcus Major spinning those Fleck coins up in Minneapolis. No, so that's great. A couple people are talking about Devon Mitchell in the comments as well.
I don't know if he's going to do anything this season, guys. You guys got to remember, this guy should be a senior in high school. And I think the hype of who he was as a recruit is great, but in actuality, he's probably tied in 4, maybe even tied in 5. Like Cade McIntyre is going to be the guy at number 3. He's been waiting in the ranks. Talking about a guy who's been waiting in the ranks, is Caden Helms ever going to do anything for this team? This guy's been hurt in and out. And we keep hearing hype every single offseason these past couple of years about Caden Helms. Man, he's got the prototypical tight end receiving body to where he could go out and be a great athlete for this team, but we have not seen it yet, over and over and over and over. So I'm not going to be the one to talk about him too much this pod, but just know that I think Devon Mitchell might be tied in 5.
Ooh, I don't know. Devon Mitchell back in July did tell, who is this he told this to? He told ESPN that his goal is to, unite with Coach Venables and be able to make Oklahoma great again. He did say that. So I like the mentality. That's interesting.
What is your goal in life, Ty? You got any aspirations? Everyone's got goals.
Our tight end room?
Nor just in general. I've got aspirations.
Everyone does.
So where are you going with this, James?
Well, I'm saying he can say his goal is to be anything in life. I'm sure we have a friend named Garrett whose goal is to eventually be with Dua Lipa, but it's probably not going to happen. Come on now. Everyone can have goals.
Okay, Garrett, I believe in you. I believe in you much more than Jamison does. I think it's a matter of being given the opportunity. It's like Tom Brady. If they put him on the field, they're never going to take him off. So I believe in you, Garrett.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's
Well,
true.
Look, I think Devon Mitchell could be a massive player down the line, but he's too young. He's got to have the time. He's got to have the time to physically mature and get in the program and everything. But I do like the overall future for him, just not now probably.
Bobby loved those videos of him that was coming out of those early spring and summer practices, how good he looked in pads. Bobby was ready to put freshman All-American team just like he did with Buki right on Devon Mitchell. And thank God he's already done this before once in the past and realized I can't do this. I've made this mistake before.
It's a stove, Jamison.
I love the gaslighting of Bobby here, that we're trying to change the revisionist history and say that Bobby was pro Buki all along.
He's
not. He's not. Podcast 1, literally the very first Schooner Pod we ever did, I said Buki was going to win freshman or Big 12 newcomer of the year. It was
we've been screwed from the start.
Just we built this podcast on a bedrock sand.
Take the coldest possible take.
Look, we didn't know at the time. I think it was before he even brought out the jackhammer or the big sledgehammer.
Oh no, jackhammer came after about 4 or 5 unsportsmanlike conducts and late hits. So you have a little bit to go. We talk about Buki too much on this podcast, and none of the other OU content I hear about him ever. He's just a thing of the past, but we talk about him all the time.
He has, it's free real estate, baby. It's just in our head.
Oh my God. Let's end with the wide receiving group, because obviously the news right now, Jaden Gibson, I don't think there's been actual definitive report other than just like sources saying that he's out for the season with a knee injury. I saw people in the comments saying torn patellar tendon. I don't know, and I've not seen anything definitive from a real person. That's not some anonymous gooner in the comments of a message board saying anything else. So moral of the story is season-ending knee injury is going to be, a thing where we can hopefully have him for next season, but it's a very big-time injury for him in his career, and it's a bummer for him. And for this wide receiving room, before he got hurt, that was the one room that I felt the most confident in, and I didn't really have doubts. Now I feel like there's a little doubt in my head about depth. Am I wrong to say that out loud? Because I still think they're our best group on offense. I'm still a little bit nervous about the depth.
I don't think you're wrong to say that. Because I feel like the depth is tenuous. And I think when you hear news like Jaden Gibson is going to be out for the season and you have people panic, that's kind of how the depth isn't perfect, where it's not where you want it to be. I don't think it's a bad unit. I just don't think it's quite as deep as I think a lot of people, have been kind of treating it to be. I think it could be. I think it could be decent, and I think it has a high ceiling, but also a low floor. It's a unit I'm definitely most comfortable with. Not panicked or anything yet, but I don't think it's as dynamic as it was last year. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. I think the loss of Drake Stoops is honestly going to hurt a lot more than people kind of are treating it to be.
Yeah, and I think that, Drake Stoops was a great weapon for Dillon Gabriel. You would hope that Jackson has a little bit more eyes to the outside wide receiver and just doesn't laser focus on the inside. But in all honesty, guys, this wide receiving room, you can throw all of your worries about depth out the window. And if Jackson wants to force feed someone, Deion Burks can be that guy. Deion Burks can be a guy who get 10 plus catches a game. You wouldn't even bat an eye. He could be a first team all SEC wide receiver amidst all of the talent that we have here. He is that good. He's exceptional. Watch his workout room videos. Watch him on the field. We're not going to talk about him off the field in Campus Corner, but we're going to talk about him as a football player. And man, he is so special and so good that I think that if you just have him out there all the time, and then maybe we rotate in just some of the other 2 or 3 deep, we don't have to worry about depth because he's that good of a football player. He's I think probably number 3 best player on this roster. And I don't think that's a hot take in the slightest. I think that's a very, very mild, cold, regular take.
Well, I mean, just look what he did at Purdue freaking Purdue, he was, I think, he was pretty stunning. One of the best players in the Big Ten last year as a wide receiver. He was stellar. It's a really good fit to have him in there. And I think, he has a chance to be, a damn star in this lineup. And I'm all in on him. And he's definitely a little bit of one of those guys who you play in the game a little bit and you're like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, no, he's if I'm not mistaken, he led the Big Ten in forced missed tackles. I can't believe I'm blanking on what that stat is actually called. Forced missed tackles.
Yeah, it sounded right as you said it.
So so basically, as long as the defenses are, he's a guy that's hard to catch outside of the Oklahoma State Patrol. So it's one of those. He has the same weaknesses that some Oklahoma State players have. Gundy's obviously got it figured out, though.
No, Gundy does not have that weakness, though.
No, he doesn't. He's uncatchable. most thousands of force missed stuff. But no, I disagree with you guys on the depth, though. I've been a tremendous Nick Anderson believer. Obviously, he started out super, super hot, had insane stats initially, and then we started to feed him a little bit more and have to rely on him a little bit more throughout last year when who was it, Andrew Anthony fell ill with an injury. But I think we will see a tremendous step forward from Nick Anderson, and I think that this room, there's always someone that shows up and comes out and impresses, and it's very exciting to me to add a guy like Burks, a guy from the Big Ten, because here's a take you haven't heard anywhere else, and this is not a bit. This is a proprietary Schooner Pod take. This is what do they call it? Like deep data analysis, some sort of machine learning, artificial intelligence has brought us this information that if you are a good receiver in the Big Ten, you will be an even better receiver in the SEC. Because if you think about it, they play football in the fall, in the winter, and in the Big Ten, when your fingers are cold, think about how hard it is to do things with your fingers when they're cold. So if you can be a good receiver with cold fingers, you can get down in the South. You can be a bit more limber, a bit more spry with your finger joints, and we'll get some proprietary medical analysis on that. But
I need Weatherman Bobby's opinion, though.
I can confirm, playing when it's warm is easier than playing when it's cold.
On the fingers, yeah, that's why the old people moved to the
fingies. Yeah, you gotta keep
the grubbies.
You gotta keep them grubbies warm. But no, I think I really think it could be damn good, and honestly, having a player of that caliber for Jackson Arnold in his freshman, basically his first year, as quarterback is going to be huge, to say the least.
Yeah, he is so needed for Jackson Arnold. It changes the whole scope of what this offense can be. But Ty, you're right. There is some at the first level. I feel like we've got a very good 1, 2, 3 hit. Not very good, but pretty darn good 1, 2, 3 hit. Nick Anderson is a guy that is already like on Bolendikoff watch. And like Bobby said, who cares about watch list? But still, the amount of touchdowns he got last year and the amount of respect that he garnered as a wide receiver was big time. And we like to clown on Jalil Farouk. We do. But in all honesty, that guy has been around the corner, has done that for a while. And even though he's made some bonehead plays, the guy is an athlete and he can go out there and be a great wide receiver 3.
A lot of people are very high on him.
Yeah, this dude's an 87 overall, I think, in college football 25. So, if you want to take ratings for what people think of him from an analytical time, like people believe in him. Like he's wide receiver 2 over Nick Anderson in the game.
The jury is definitely still out on, again, he's made some mistakes, but like we talked about with Jackson Arnold, those could be learning points. And from everything that I've seen, at least, like, fan polls, student polls, seems to be a very well-liked guy within the organization. So I've kind of changed my tune a little bit on him, seeing how much other people that have interacted with him like him. So we'll maybe make some more excuses for his on-the-field lack of performance because we love some good nepotism, I guess.
I'm proud of you, Ty. I'm very proud of you for making that big step.
Yeah, I think we are tremendously deep, though. I think you should keep going, Jamison. You mentioned 2, but you mentioned that maybe there's some depth of at least 4. I think there's depth of 5 before we get into new guys.
Yeah, if we're talking about those guys as our 3 starting wide receivers, and then you move on to the 2 deep beyond that, I feel that when Andrew Anthony comes back, yes. I want to put a big asterisk on this. This was the guy that was looking like our wide receiver 1 for the beginning part of the season last year. And he had
he was. There was no debate.
Yes, and he was and obviously an ACL injury and a guy who has shiftiness and speed changes everything. And we know that it wasn't just an ACL injury because he had a setback and had to go and get another scope. So at least there's meniscal damage here as well. So that his recovery, you can't expect him to be what he was last year. You cannot expect him. I'm not going to buy as much stock or even any stock in him right now based off of that. So I think you got to talk about some of the other guys. A guy that we on this pod have been loving for a while now, and I was scared he was going to transfer. At the slot behind Burks, Jaquays Petaway, I love Petaway so much. Man, there's players whenever you watch them and they come out on the field and you're like, okay, that guy's got it, and I want to see more Petaway.
Oh, absolutely. And I wanted to see more Petaway last year.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those early games, you just, like you said, you saw it. He looked like a star, the speed, he looks like exactly what you want out of a wide receiver. And to kind of see him disappear, you kind of get it a little bit, especially given, you're behind Drake Stoops in a way. But Petaway, to me, I think is... Yeah, that's a guy to watch for sure. For sure.
He's probably got like an Instagram or something if you guys want to see more.
Does he? Is he a well-known public figure?
I don't know, but if you want to see more Petaway content, I'm sure he's got some sort of social media.
I guess you could. You could watch the replays and be like, oh, there's Jaquays Petaway.
Yeah. I'm not gonna don't laugh at that, please. Let's just
oh, no. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Let's talk about, in all reality, what coming out of camp with Jaden Gibson going down, the guys that are coming in to take his spot, in that 2 deep outside wide receiver. Seems like JJ Hester is the guy who's kind of slotted into that spot, which he's been there for a couple years, transferred in, and he'll come in from time to time, whenever he makes plays, I'm like, look, it's JJ Hester. It doesn't get me the most excited, but if you're talking about a guy that in the spring game, I was like, okay, this guy in the 3rd and 4th quarter was making plays against the 3rd and 4th teams. I was like, this guy looks pretty good out there. And he was wearing kind of a weird number. I think it was something in the 20s. What numbers Ivan carry on? Because I remember loving him in the spring game, and looks like he's actually doing stuff in practice to where I wouldn't be surprised if he gets onto the field. I'm looking up his number right now because I thought it was like 20 or something, but it looks like they have him at 82 now. Maybe they've changed it.
Oh, well, I guess that, he got the old Gavin Freeman number.
That's exactly what it is. He finally changed his number from something in the 20s to the Gavin Freeman. Oh, what a beneficiary.
Ladies and gentlemen, I said I wouldn't say anything. I said I wouldn't say anything on the podcast. We all know I can't say it. It's a good thing he's gone.
It's going to be a breath of fresh air for Schooner Pod listeners to not hear Ty talk about Gavin Freeman every week.
The fans loved it. The fans loved it. They said it was one of my most accurate takes of all time. They said I was so right. It's been proven that I was so right. You guys are biased. You guys have a bias from your alma mater. I understand that. I would do the same thing. He had gone to one of my schools. I understand that.
Spin move. Yeah, it's understood.
It's Wes Welker. It's Wes Welker.
I can almost guarantee you, as a troll to OU fans, Seth Luttrell is going to have a jet sweep in the first half of the Temple game. I can almost guarantee it.
Jet sweep.
Lock it in right now.
Seeing the jet sweep being like, I can't stand it. Like I look, I know Jeff Levy obviously got a pretty good promotion there. I don't see why anyone's excited about him at Mississippi State. I think OU really lucked out having that guy gone. I feel really glad that he is not at my program anymore.
Exactly really, an hour in, and here comes
not my program.
just glad. Thank you, Zach Selman, for that. I just going back and thinking about specifically, doing the prep we've been doing for the season as a whole, and looking in at, to me, those two losses, Kansas and OSU, it's infinitely maddening about just how winnable both of those were. And it's so clearly to me, like that's on the offense and just some of the just dumbest play calls. And I'm just glad to be gone with that.
I think there's one player on the offense that we could talk about. Neither here nor there.
Zion Kearney, he's like a Bolitnikoff winner in like year 3 of my dynasty. So
he does get some early reps. He does get some early reps. That's for sure. I'm like, who's back there returning kicks for me? I'm like, why is Zion Kearney in? What's going on?
What do they know that I don't know about Zion Kearney? He's getting kick returns.
I mean, they saw what we were doing with Gavin Freeman, and then they said, okay, he's gone now, so who's the next most like inexplicable guy to put back there?
Zion Kearney.
We laugh. Right. But we need one guy to be an X factor in this wide receiving room that we don't already know has production. I think that there needs to be a guy who's the number 4 that we feel very, very confident in. And I think you can almost eliminate Brennan Thompson out of that because I think you know what you're getting out of him. You're going to get a couple 75-yard plus touchdowns on deep balls and whatnot, or 50-plus yard touchdowns on deep balls. But I think we need an outside wide receiver that is not Jalil Farouk, is not Nick Anderson, it's not Burks, to go out there and become a guy for this wide receiving room. And so we'll see who it is.
I just don't – I'm not trying to continue this debate. I just don't understand how you can say there's not depth because you can't name a number 5 guy on the outside who can produce multiple deep ball touchdowns. Like you just went through 4 different guys saying like, yeah, you're going to get some 20-plus yard breakaway touchdowns from this guy consistently, and then also this guy probably at least once a game, and then this guy probably every other game, and then this guy just probably every time he gets in the game. I just feel like I am tremendously confident on this. Receiver, right, not to discredit it, is a very challenging position to play, but at the same time, you don't have necessarily, because there's the depth, the spread, you can sort of pass off your liability, so to speak, on some other position groups. The quarterback didn't get it to me right or at the right timing or whatever. But I feel like it's a little bit easier maybe to be a good receiver. And the fact that we have so many, just a depth and a wealth of guys who just have a long time, like a very long tenure at different programs and everything else. I just feel like this is a tremendously deep room. And I feel like I am most confident in this room with an asterisk caveat to that of I feel like I know what I'm going to get from them more than any other offensive position group, right? I'm not saying everyone's going to be
association
All-Americans. Well, not necessarily though. Like I'm not saying they're all going to be first team All-Americans. There's going to be people getting awards. There's going to be, first or second team SEC even. I just feel like, if I'm looking at this and saying, what am I most confident about? I am most confident in knowing exactly what I'm going to get from this receiver room. So I'm very confident in that because I can plan for that. If I'm the coaching staff, I can, build around that. It's almost the consistency and the reliability of it, even if it's not the best in the world, is tremendous because we have tremendous uncertainty on the line. We have who knows what's going to happen in the quarterbacks. We have, unfortunately, maybe not the best confidence in the running back room. Like I think we know what we're going to get from it, and we're kind of cautiously optimistic that we'll be proven wrong about production from the running back room, assuming no injuries, and then injuries throw a curveball to that. But I feel like the receiver room is just, I don't see how you can't be tremendously confident in the depth of this room, because if one guy goes down, I don't know that you have a tremendous drop off to the next. And yeah, that might mean that number 1 guy is not that great, and that number 2 guy is also not that great. There's not a delta between them that's significant. But I just feel like I'm very confident in this receiver room.
Well, and Ty, look at how it went last year too. When Andrell Anthony went down, like I felt like the unit. I mean, it wasn't perfect. Like they still had to kind of figure out what to do without him. I felt like afterwards, but it didn't collapse. I felt like they did a really good job of keeping things consistent and keeping things like afloat, despite losing who was like someone who was clearly your burner, clearly your deep threat, your number one receiver. And, I think that's a credit to the unit as a whole. I think it's a credit to Emmett Jones as well, the wide receiver coach, who I think is just phenomenal.
I think about it. I think it's not talked about enough. OU fans know that we are very spoiled when it comes to quarterbacks. We have that quarterback bias, right? Like turn the clock back however far you want to turn it back. Jason White, Josh Heupel, but
2000,
Sam Bradford, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Spencer Rattler, even Caleb Williams, even we have
Jones.
Tremendous quarterbacks. Yeah,
Dylan Gabriel. He didn't say it.
But you don't. Well, we'll see, right? Because this is his legacy year. Is this year? All bits aside, but OU fans are tremendously, spoiled when it comes to receivers too. And I'm not saying that as a negative, right? But you got guys like Ryan Broyles, you got guys like CeeDee Lamb right now, you got guys like Hollywood Brown, Sterling Shepard, like guys that have tremendous NFL careers and everything else. And I'm leaving out like 20 different guys, even in just the 2000s in the receiver room.
Mark Clayton.
And you have these guys who are like, so firmly, like we've had receivers in the Heisman ceremony, like in recent years, like you have guys who are first round draft picks at receiver, right? Like I think we do have a bit of a skewed perspective. Like Deion Burks, a guy who probably is our receiver one, right, was the best player on the team that he came from. And we have a lot of guys who would go to most other FBS D1 schools and be the star of that school, even in Power 4, Power 5, however you want to say it. I'm never going to stop saying Power 5. Shout out to the two in the Pac-12. May they live on forever. But
you're still powerful in my mind.
Yeah, no, they are. There's powerful as Oklahoma State. So I just think, I think there is tremendous depth there. So I'll cede the rest of my time, even though I've gone over time. But I think I will die on the hill of this receiver room.
It's by far, I'm not by far, but I think it is very comfortably the best room on the offense.
I would say,
which is maybe not saying a lot. To be fair.
How far is by far though? Because I feel quite a bit better about them than I do the running backs.
It's in a tier above everyone else.
I feel comfortably. Well, oh wait. I mean, we break it into tiers, boys.
We've done it before.
We're an hour 8.
A surprise bonus hour.
Break out the tier maker.
I will say Jackson Arnold, obviously a one-man punch your own ticket. He has a tremendously high ceiling. As much as I hate those takes and stuff, like Jackson Arnold, again, knock on wood, things could click and we could play him right and some dominoes could fall his way. I'm not saying Heisman, but I'm saying he could come in and be in conversation for I think he could very easily be in conversation for top 10 quarterback in all of college football this year. So it is hard to compete with one man being able to paint his own destiny. And
I think he's going to be a lot better than a lot of what pundits are saying, not to loop all the way back to the quarterback position, but I think he's going to dictate a lot of how this offense goes as a whole. Just to kind of sum it up and talk about the offense as a whole.
That's that brilliant Schooner Pod analysis people tune into.
The quarterback is important. Wow, way to go. No, but I feel like to me he's going to be like a lot of pundits are putting him around 11th in the SEC. I think by the end of this thing he's going to be way higher than that. He either is, if he's 11th, we're going to be wanting to call for his head. He's either that guy or he ain't.
And I think if he's 11th, we see Thompson as a starter week 10. Objectively, that's not even a crazy take. I think what you would have to do to be 11th in the SEC this year as a quarterback, right? Obviously, Jackson Dart on his 20th season in college football has a tremendous advantage, but
he also has tuberculosis.
So Jalen Milroe definitely better than him. Carson Beck better than him. Quinn Ewers better than him.
Will Jalen Milroe be
saying,
better with the coach from Washington?
Yeah.
Yes. They're saying
you made Michael Penix into a star.
I'm guessing they're saying Nussmeier for LSU is probably better. I'm guessing what they're saying, and then they're saying Nico of Tennessee is better than them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because Tennessee's going to throw the ball 94 times.
Surely not Vandegrift. Brady Cook from
Wegman,
Missouri.
Brady Cook, Jackson Dart. I don't know where you get 11.
Yeah.
Wait, someone had Dart at like 10, or was that just in
somewhere.
no particular order?
I don't know. Keep in mind, bear in mind, this list had Brady Cook number 1. So
was it based off of on 3?
No.
I can't wait for the NCAA to just lose power halfway through the season and someone to find like a loophole when the conferences fill the vacuum. Like that the SEC has like no particular rule that someone who spent some time in the pros can't have another year of eligibility. And then we get Jameis Winston or someone comes back. Be tremendous. He would. He would. He'd be like 40 or Cam Newton, like 43-year-old Cam Newton wearing a fedora on the sideline.
This has gone a little far, but I love it. You just you get one legend card or whatever to come back,
Yeah. What's that game mode where you pull the card?
Ultimate.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like jury duty.
Boys, fun podcast. It was nice talking about the offense. Definitely a unit in flux. One that I'm very excited to see how it pans out. But yeah, guys, it's getting, we're almost there. Any final thoughts before we move on, Jameson?
Ty's got something.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we didn't talk about fullbacks.
You got anything for me, Ty? Because I ain't. I got nothing.
Fullback?
No news
I
on the
worry
fullback
that we're not going to run a good wishbone.
Justin Beebe is the man to watch for.
No, not Beebe.
All right. That's enough. Anyways, no, guys, good show. This was fun. And, hey, look, we'll be back next week. Talk about the defensive roster for the Schooner Pod. We'll be back overall on Wednesday, though, doing our first ever full out SEC preview. That's going to be fun. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be spicy. I can't wait. So until Wednesday, if you're, into the whole SEC, watch on Wednesday, watch on Sunday. We're back. Until then, have a good week, everybody, and Boomer Sooner, y'all.